60 years ago, a flame of freedom and hope was kindled in the heart of Africa. Zambia, a vibrant nation of a multicultural people, emerged from the shadows of colonial oppression in 1964. Zambia's liberation came on the heels of the sacrifices of brave men and women who gave their all for the dream of an independent nation. These heroes whose spirits whisper through the winds of Zambia's valleys and the rustle of the country's mighty rivers laid the foundation for a nation's future, rich in promise and potential. On October 24, 1964, Zambia emerged as a beacon of freedom and hope in Africa. Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Zambia's founding father, believed that Zambia's independence would be incomplete as long as other African nations remained under colonial rule. Keke saw the liberation of the continent as a collective effort where the freedom of one nation contributed to the freedom of all in the region and on the continent as a whole.
Kenneth Kaunda and our leaders, through our foreign policy, were involved in very admirable efforts, diplomatic efforts, to help resolve the issues of the continued colonization of our neighbors. So, for example, we know that Zambia was very much involved in the Non-Aligned Movement in the context of the Cold War, and a summit was held here in 1970. Then from 1970 to 1973, Kenneth Kaunda was the chairperson of the Non-Aligned Movement. Apart from that, Kaunda personally mediated several talks that impacted significantly the liberation efforts of our neighbors.
Through his leadership, Zambia engaged in a long liberation struggle for the independence of many other African countries, although Zambia paid a huge price for this.
Hosting leaders of liberation movements was not easy. We set up a liberation center on Chilumbulu Road, which is now a staff college for the Ministry of Defense. That used to be the Liberation Center. ANC of South Africa was there, PAC of South Africa were there, MPLA were there, SWAPO were there, ZAPU, ZANU, they were there, Frelimo was there. They were all based there. And we had to take care of them and to make sure that we protect them from harm, because when I was head of the service, on one or two occasions we had letter bombs sent to freedom fighters at the Liberation Center. One of them exploded and killed people in the Liberation Center. One of the people who were injured is Max Sisulu, who later became Speaker of the South African Parliament, the son of Walter Sisulu, the founders of the African National Congress of South Africa. To this day, he still carries a limp from that explosion, a bomb explosion in the mail which was sent to the ANC.
Ian Smith closed the border between Southern Rhodesia and Zambia because of the help that we are giving our neighbors in trying to help them to liberate themselves from colonialism. So that had immeasurable effect. And to make matters worse, this was the period, the 1970s and 1980s was the period when we were facing so many economic challenges ourselves. So the closure of that border necessitated measures for us to find ways of exporting and importing things, because we depended so much on the southern road. So this necessitated the construction of Tazama and other infrastructure which came at a great cost to ourselves.
We supported the struggle wholeheartedly, Zambia. And without the support that we gave the struggle, not just in terms of supporting the armed struggle, but also of supporting the negotiating process when the time was right, they wouldn't have been able to get where they did in the time that they did. And I think that a lot of them still appreciate what we've done. And that is why, for example, when I go to places like Namibia, I'm treated more or less like a king because we made a lot of, we did a lot of it. In the case of Namibia, I, on behalf of Zambia, took the question of Southwest Africa to the UN Security Council and persuaded the UN Security Council to refer that Southwest Africa question to the International Court of Justice at The Hague to rule that South Africa's presence in Southwest Africa was illegal. The matter went to court, International Court, 1970. The judgment came in July, I think, 1971. They ruled in our favor, that South Africa's presence was indeed illegal, and that they should withdraw from Southwest Africa. And that paved the way for Resolution 435, which eventually led to the independence of Namibia. So we did a lot for Zimbabwe. The Zimbabwe Constitutional Conference was agreed here in Zambia. During the Commonwealth Conference, at a meeting between President Kaunda, President Nyerere of Tanzania, and Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher of the United Kingdom, they met here and agreed that there will be a constitutional conference to discuss the future of Zimbabwe. That was 1979. And the conference was held. Elections were held in 1980, and that's how Mugabe ended up becoming Prime Minister in 1980. Moved towards terminating the struggle and assuming independence. So in the case of Angola, we are the ones who persuaded the Portuguese here in Lusaka. Mario Soares, who was foreign minister, later became Prime Minister of Portugal. We invited him to come. He came here and we told him independence is the only thing we could accept.
Recognizing education as a critical driver for national development and self-reliance, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda's government embarked on an ambitious plan to expand and improve the education sector. Policies and legislation to support educational reforms were therefore introduced to support the government's vision of an educated population. These policies helped to standardize education and set the groundwork for future advancement of the sector. Dr. Kaunda's emphasis on education established a robust foundation for Zambia's development. The hallmark of his policies and initiatives was to create a knowledgeable and skilled population, essential for driving the country towards a prosperous and self-sufficient future.
I think at some point we really digressed or diverted from the foundation that the forefathers created for us. For example, we're talking about the trade institutes, Victor. These are institutes that would equip our Zambian men and women with skills. Okay, talk about bricklayers, talk about plumbers, talk about carpenters, talk about welders, talk about a lot of professionals. These are they that would not even depend on anyone for employment. And this is what we needed as a country to move forward.
We're talking of a young person who is learning how to repair cars, automotive mechanics. A young person who is still learning on a Land Rover. We are looking at how technology has improved from the time when Land Rovers were being manufactured. Today we have modern vehicles. We are talking about modernizing everything, going electric. Are the skills up to date that these young people are acquiring from these schools? I think they are not, because most of the young people, when they graduate, they go back to the community with nothing to do, with no capital, with no innovations to show that they have learned something from these skills training institutions. So therefore, government needs to improve on the skills that are being given to these young people in these facilities.
Building on Dr. Kaunda's legacy, innovation has become the driving force of development into the future. From cutting-edge technology to sustainable agriculture, the country is slowly turning into a hub of creativity and forward-thinking solutions in almost every sector.
When you look at the 2023 school curriculum framework that is yet to be implemented in 2025, next year, it's very progressive. It does not only take us back to those days, but it also improves with time, of course. Remember, we're talking about 60 years. So what could have been not in place then is in place now. I'm talking about technology, advanced technology.
Creating an enabling environment for skills and education opportunities for Zambia's young population remains at the center of several youth empowerment programs that are being implemented countrywide. This is in line with the vision of the founding fathers of Zambia.
Government is giving attention to the young people. Of course, the attention has just started coming to the young people, but I think there is still need for more attention to be given to these young people, because young people are the key, the major stakeholder who will ensure development of the country. We are talking of Zambia being 60 years old. I think this is something that we need to be proud of, but also we need our societies to look like we have truly been 60 years independent.
In pursuit of the United Nations UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, Zambia is actively engaging in various developmental initiatives. These are aimed at promoting sustainable development, focusing on harnessing renewable energy, preserving natural resources, and ensuring equitable growth across the country. As the country drives towards sustainable development in the face of climate change, Zambia's future remains in the hands of its young people. Their creativity, passion, and drive are set to continue pushing the nation forward, ensuring that Zambia continues on a trajectory of sustainable development.
Ifine government foi possible kosana mano kumsipena na foi msipena tulingile twatungila government more especially for badeshika ama courses ya kusana let's say for abakwete kweshuko ili yako ya kuma colleges ayapsana through the same government empowerment ile from government tulingile twaposa kosana mano cause quality development cha Zambia more especially abantu abadepo kama bursaries ya kuma university ayapsana balingile baposa kwa mani so that waleta ku development mshalo chesu cha Zambia.
We are impressed with the availability of the UPND government in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of talk about these cooperatives. We have, of course, Constituency Development Fund, CDF there. We have this institution, CEEC. We have this Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises. So you can see that this particular scope of entrepreneurship has burgeoned. And this calls for each one of us to see an opportunity where we are. Right now, we know that we're talking about the shortage of food. Here we're talking about maize, for example. How can we engage in farming as young people? We have the equipment for irrigation. We produce. We are feeding the community. So you see that even crises bring out opportunities. The question is, how do we ensure that we are on this particular program to answer to the challenges that the communities face?
I'm very proud to be Zambian and I'm very proud to be part of this history. But personally, I feel very strongly that we need to enhance our appreciation of our own history, especially through the Zambian school curriculum from primary to secondary. I think this is somewhere that I think we can do much better. You know, history is already the ridiculed subject. Either on Facebook, you'll find people say, so you learned about Zinjanthropus. So what did that help you with? I think as a nation, we can do better to enhance the role that history plays in our education system and in our national development. Every time we talk about national issues, be it the constitution or anything that is happening, we always go back and discuss history. So I think our young people need to be embedded in that history. They need to, you know, to adopt it as their own, and we can do this through the curriculum and through other areas.
As the sun shines on Zambia's journey through 6 decades of independence, the dreams of young people, coupled with their boundless energy and creativity, continue lighting up the path, offering hope and a promise for a bright Zambia tomorrow.